Going once, going twice, not sold. Today we're going to take you through 3 mistakes that a lot of home buyers make when buying a home at auction. Josh, let's get going. Buying a home at auction is an incredibly popular way of getting your first home, but it's also an incredibly scary way of buying. And we see people make mistakes all the time, especially in Sydney and Victoria. It's really common for people to buy a home at auction. In Brisbane, not so much, but it's becoming increasingly popular, and we see people actually get good deals at it, but there are huge mistakes. Josh, take us through the first mistake people make at buying at auction. I guess it's listening to the real estate agent too much. Tell us a bit from the behind the scenes and the stuff that you've seen when you worked in the industry.
So the biggest one we see is pre-auction offers. Pre-auction offers are offers before the auction starts or is in motion. And what it's designed is to educate the seller. Well, the way it's created to educate the seller is to show them where the market is. Now, the agent will always encourage anyone to put whatever offer they think the property is worth in writing, unconditional, pre-auction. And what they're hoping for is it educates the seller along the way for the property being worth less than what the market's worth.
Well, because I guess at this point, if you're selling your property, the agent's like, yeah, it's going to sell for a huge amount. They're sort of pumping your gas and trying to get you excited and think the property's maybe worth more than it is. But then what the agent's doing as a buyer is they're trying to get you to make some cheeky offers, and really you're doing their job for them by conditioning their seller. And this is something that we see all the time. A lot of home buyers will come to us and say, I've got to put an offer in subject to 3 days finance. I'm going to do it 2 days before auction, and I'm going to get an absolute deal on this place. Unfortunately, the reality is they're not going to accept your offer, are they, Josh?
Not at all.
So, awesome answer. So the mistake there is don't fall prey to an agent trying to get you to make a pre-auction offer. Because a lot of the times they're just trying to get you to condition their buyer. And so, in other words, you might need to wait till the auction is done to be able to secure that home. Mistake number 2 is something that comes a bit from research and a bit from experience. It's the real estate agent making you think, as the buyer, the property's worth way less. Josh, talk us through this and how it works and practically how it plays out in an auction scenario.
So real estate agents have a saying called feed the greed. And their goal is to essentially think that you're gonna get an absolute bargain, a basement price for a property that's worth much more. And the way they do this is that they give you everything in ambiguity. They actually can't tell you what the property is worth or the expectations of the property under some sort of legal something or other.
It's a law.
But the reality is that they'll have you believe whatever you want to believe. And the reason for this is that if they can have 20 groups show up wanting to bid at the property, it creates an excitement. It creates something that's very special that will, in the end, get higher prices. Now, it might not be you, but you'll have helped that person that buys it think it's worth more than what it's worth because there's so many registered bidders.
It's that whole FOMO thing. And if you think about even an eBay auction, it's not really an auction if there's just one person there, because you're not going to bid against yourself. But all it takes is 2 people, and if I'm pushing the price up $5,000, Josh pushes up $5,000, and it makes the property sell for a much more inflated value just because you got 2 bums on the seat. So it's a little trick real estate agents use where they'll make you think, and even on the realestate.com.au filters, they'll put a property in a lower price bracket. So although they might know a property is going to sell for $500,000, it might be appearing in your search when you're looking for homes up to $400,000. So I guess tip number 2 is do your own research. So you can look at some other videos that we've got on researching the property process, but realistically, you need to look for recently sold properties. So you can hit us up and we'll do an RP data for you, report for you, or just look for other houses in that same suburb, or units, in that same suburb that has the same amount of bedrooms, that's roughly the same size. So if you're comparing a 1-bedroom unit in Northgate, you need to be looking at other 1-bedroom units in Northgate to understand what it's going to sell for. Because, like Josh said, the real estate agent there might be baiting you in to get you to put an offer on a place or even register it for an auction that might be hundreds of thousands of dollars more than what you can actually afford. Mistake number 3. If you go to an auction, you're registered, and maybe it doesn't meet the reserve price, so the property didn't sell at auction. Josh, what's a mistake that you've seen people make here in making an offer just after the auction's finished?
So post-auction, a lot of people aren't aware that you actually don't have a cooling off period, and ensure because a lot of agents will get around this. You have your finance and your building and pest clause still available.
Yeah, so in other words, you don't have the consumer protections you normally have, if you're in Queensland that is, with signing a contract. By default, you get a 5-day cooling off period, which means you can rescind the contract and get out pretty easily. Fortunately, you still potentially have your building and pest and your finance clauses in there. Like Josh said, the agents might try and twist your arm and make you think that you don't need to put that in there. I definitely suggest it, because like we've covered in our pre-approval videos and other videos, you still could have problems with valuations, or you might not even, presumably you have your building and pest at that point, but you might not, and it's worth having. All right, Josh, so we've got a good bonus tip here that you've just included for anyone that's looking at buying a home after it's been to auction. What kind of headspace is a seller in at this point, and how can you actually use it to get maybe a better deal?
Oftentimes the seller's head is spinning. A lot of agents use auctions as an educational tool, especially when the agent can see that the seller has high expectations, extremely high expectations, and their goal is to get them back down to reality. So at that point, it's a really good opportunity to potentially get a deal of the century. Jaden?
Yeah, so again, as a seller, you're going to be exhausted. You've gone through a 4-week auction campaign, you're opening your house up every week, you're over it, basically. So it could be a good point if you know a property's been to auction and it's fallen through. I always go to the agent and say, well, what was the highest bid at auction? Or have you had any offers before auction? They won't always tell you the truth, you kind of have to be there, but at least you might know what other people were willing to pay. If they put in offers at auction, they got knocked back, or if the agent wants to try and help you and get a deal, by that point they might be over as well. It could be a good way to get a bit of a better deal because you have more transparency on the market compared to how we were talking before auction. You don't really know, and the sellers could have their heads up in the clouds. So that's it today, guys. What did you learn about auctions that you didn't already know before? Let us know in the comments below and leave us a thumbs up if you want to like or subscribe.